Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. Hello again modellers, and welcome back to the workshop. We're still working on the Blackburn Monoplane. I've not done that little bit of cowl that I meant to do yesterday, but I just thought I'd do something different today. So what I'm looking at is the rigging for the wing, for the flying wires and the landing wires. These are the rigging wires that are on the aircraft. The landing wires are the ones that go to the top of the rigging post and to the tops of the wings, and they take the load of the wings when the aircraft's on the ground. So they're called landing wires, and they absorb the shock of the wings flexing when the undercarriage hits the ground. Hopefully not too hard. The lifting wires, on the other hand, are the wires that take the lifting load of the wing and pull upwards to lift the aircraft. So the wings that the rigging wires that are attached to the lower surfaces of the wings, they are the lifting wires. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to just show you how the wires are going to be made, and also what I'm using, and also how they're connected at the top of the mast. If you remember, on the Blackburn Monoplane, it has a mast just in front of the cockpit, and all the landing wires and the warping wires all go to that mast. So what I'm going to do today is make the fitting that goes on top of the mast that all the wires connect to, and I'll also show you the wires and how I'm making those and how I'm terminating the ends to try and make it look as realistic as possible. Okay, so without further ado, let's get cracking. What I'm looking at now is something that is utter madness. And I may scrap this and just make another one because it's actually not coming out very symmetrical. And you know what I like things to be perfect. What I'm looking at making is this. This is the top of the strut where all the rigging wires come from. This line here with the pulley, this is the line that joins the two or the three trailing edge wires on each side. So at each end of these are three lines and three lines. So that goes to the trailing edge of the top of the wing. The leading edge of the top of the wing goes to these three anchor points across the top, three on each side. Then these two additional anchor points, you see, well, there's two at the rear and two at the front. These are to support the post itself. So what I'm aiming to make is two lithoplate plates, separated fractionally with bolts all the way through. And there's 11 bolts going through this. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of lithoplate, which you can probably barely see, piece of lithoplate, and I've drilled it to sort of mimic those patterns, or that pattern. So there's three on the side for each side, there's four in the middle, two for the front rigging wires and two for the rear rigging wires, and then one at the back which will hold the pulley for the aileron control wires, the wire that goes across from one side to the other. So believe it or not, there's actually two pieces of lithoplate there glued together, and they're glued together with U-hoop pour so that I could shape them and drill them. But as you can see, it's not a very even shape. I've not done a very good job of making it symmetrical, which means I might make another one of these. There again, I might not, but we'll see if the theory works. If the principle works, then maybe I'll make another one, but we'll see. So these holes are probably around 0.8 of a millimetre, 0.6. So what I've done is I've cut some carbon rod, 0.6 mil, 0.5 mil probably, carbon rod, some little short lengths of it, 11 little short lengths, and I've also drilled straight through this alloy plate, or the two plates, into some plywood. And I've gone in not very far, but a little way. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these little dowels, little rods, in the holes. And I've not thought this through yet, so it might not work. And the idea is that these will hold the plates, the two plates, at exactly the same orientation. That's the plan. So maybe I'll just put 3 in and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to split these two down if I can. So these two were joined with U port, so they should split. I can do it without cutting my fingers. So there they are, split back down again. So it's still coated in glue, so they don't want to let go of each other. Now what I'm going to do is, that one's the right way up, that one's upside down. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to squirt them with a little bit of activator, super glue activator, which dissolves Yoo-hoo pour. So I'm just doing this to get the pour off of there without having to faff around too much. Probably shouldn't have done it on top of my piece of plywood because I'm going to be doing some super glue work on that. It's probably going to make it set really quick. That's the one that's upside down. That's the one that's the right way up. So I'm going to put the upside down one. That's the one that's the right way up. Yeah, so that's the way up it should be. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get that to go over the pins. So that we can actually get it all aligned on the baseboard. And I'm glad I only used 3 pins because they're proving quite difficult to align. There we go. Now I'm not going to go down all the way because I don't want to glue this to the board. So I think what I might do is go down. Well, actually that'll probably do us. So we've got it off the top, off the base. As you can see, this is wicking far too much. All I use is a bit of kitchen roll just to wick away the extra. So I don't want too much glue on there. There we go. Now I should be able to put the other plate on top. That's the theory. I think I might. See if I can get some tweezers in there to help me. And it doesn't help that my eyesight's not what it used to be. That one's in. That one's in. 2 of them are in. Now I need to move it down. I think what's happened is the one on this side is actually sinking into the plywood a little bit further than I wanted. There we go. That's gone through the carbon rod has gone through the alley plate now. So 3 was definitely my limit. I was going to put all 11 through. I'm glad I didn't now. So there we go. What I've done is I've put the top plate on top of the 3 pins, and looking down the side I've got it about 2 millimeters apart. So I'll get a little bit of glue on there just to set it. And then I'm going to wick it all off again, or not all of it, but the majority of it back off. There we go. It's a nifty little trick that, to get rid of excess glue. So now in theory I can push these other pins through and they should go through both. But what I'm going to do is just run the drill through just to make sure there's no glue in them. This little drill has been absolutely amazing. Worth its weight in gold. Brilliant. So let's just clean those out. I'm just going to start with this one and see if it'll go through both. Which it has. Next one along. I think that's gone through both. Yes, it has. There we go. To make sure that it's not pushed flat onto the board, which it hasn't, we're still okay. Not sure if you can actually see much of what I'm doing here. Through one, through two, and the last one. Through one, through two. So that's all of the rods mounted into the two sections. So again, we give it some glue and then we wick away the excess. There we go. Now we need to cut all the tops off and then cut it away from the board. This is the bit where it might not work. So let's just see if we can cut some of this off. Probably would have been easier to do this in the Dremel. Not in the Dremel, but just sand it away. Let's try that. Yeah, that seems to work quite nicely. Then I'm just going to gently sand the top to get them flush. There we go. There they all are. Hopefully they're all still attached. I'm going to give it another quick go with some CA, just in case we've damaged the fibres, and then we'll wick that off. So it will have soaked in but won't alter the surface. Now the difficult bit is going to be cutting underneath through all that lot. So I'm not sure how we're going to do this yet. I'm going to try using this little saw that goes in a knife blade. Now I'm not sure if this will work because this blade is probably fairly old and blunt, and I wouldn't want to do it on a new one anyway because it'll probably destroy it. Feels like it's cutting, but I can't be sure. I think the blade's giving up on me. The alternative is this one, which I was using. There's one additional hole that you can see right in the middle of this assembly, and that's for a 1.6mm piece of carbon dowel, and that centralises this on top of the post. And there we go. If that's worked, then both sides should be fairly flush. No idea which side I just did. That's the sawn side, and it looks good. So I'm just going to wipe it on that, flip it over. Let's use the fine side. And there we have our piece with lots of posts in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach the lines to this. In fact, I'm going to find something to do I was going to put a pulley in there inside the carbon tube, but I've gone too far now. So I think possibly the line that runs across the trailing edges, the one single heavy wire that runs through, I'm just going to run it through that. I'm not going to worry about it too much. And I've just noticed on the drawing that actually that rear one is actually angled down, and I think that's probably a bit too late now to worry about that. So that's a bit of a nuisance, isn't it? Unless I can get that one out to break, or even bend, but I doubt it will. No, it's broken. It doesn't matter. Let's take the carbon tube out, bend the other one. Now let's see if we can make a new hole. Just there. And then we need to lose the excess. I'm not going to worry too much about rounding that off. I think that'll be fine the way it is. Now I could go back to my pulley idea now, because I've removed the pin, but now you can see we've got, it's very difficult to see, I know, it's angled down now like the photograph, and we now have a hole that should accept a pin. Get it to line up. There we go. So I can either glue it and just run the line through it, or I can go and find something that looks like a pulley and put it in there. Which would be even nicer, wouldn't it? So let me go and have a rummage and see what I can find. Now I think I'm just being silly here. The chances of getting something to fit in that are pretty remote. So I think I'm just going to glue that into there. And bring it down as low as I can so I don't need to sand that top surface. Outside of that side, lick away the excess. And then just sand the extra bit off. That'll do. So there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out how long all these lines need to be to go to the ends of the wing. And oh, this is the rod that goes through the middle, like that. And then that end of it goes down into the post on the aeroplane to give it an anchor point. Put the anchor piece in there. Get it flush. That's the wrong way. There we go. Suddenly realised, as that was drying, that it needs to stick down on the side that is angled down, not the other side. Nearly goofed. And there we go. So that's ready to mount on the top of that post. And it gives us all these anchor points. So what I'm going to do is measure, as I think I started to say before I suddenly leapt off at a tangent, what I'm going to do is attach to this all the lines that go to the wing. And I'll attach them at this end ready to go. I think that's probably going to be the best. Or I could attach them on the aircraft. Just wondering whether it would be easier to fit them here on the bench than over there. Yeah, it might be easier here. So let me go and try this on the top of the post, and if that works, then I'll measure the longest distance, and we'll make a few of the wires so you can, or we'll make one of the wires so you can see what exactly I'm up to. As you can see, I've got the wings on temporarily. All they do is they just push on and just into the tubes, and that is strong enough to hold them, but I wouldn't like, you couldn't fly it like that, it wouldn't be strong enough, but it's holding enough. The rigging wires in this case actually do something. They do all the work. So if we put the little bit on the top, see how far down that tube goes. Well, not tube, but there we go. That drops down, and it's a little bit too long. So I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch off that. So I've taken 1/8 of an inch off of that, and now hopefully that will sit down nice and flush. I can actually get hold of the thing. Yeah, there we go. So when the time comes, we'll glue that to the top of that post. Inside this balsa post is a carbon tube, quite a bigger diameter than it looks. There's a good 2.5mm carbon tube in there, and that carbon tube goes right down through the bulkhead into the backbone section of this, the horizontal piece underneath here. So that is nice and rigid, and I can pick the model up by that, no problem. So all I'm going to do is run the 3 rigging wires that go to the leading edge on the right hand side over that way, the 3 rigging wires this way, then the 3 trailing edge wires come to here and here, and then there's a sort of a loop of heavier wire that goes through the middle here that these 3 are anchored to, and that allows the wires to slip and slide either way as you warp the wings. Then there are the 2 inner wires that come down to here and here, and the other 2 go to the front, and I've actually fitted them already, but they're not anchored to the right place. Now I might just leave it like that and not worry about it, but there again, you do know what I'm like. so there's a good chance I will actually do it properly, but jury's still out on that one. Anyway, there you go, that's how that's done. Let me attach one line to this over on the bench. Or shall we do it on here? No, we'll do it over on the bench, and you'll see how the lines are attached to this little item here. I'm really sorry for the state of the workbench. It's disgusting. I need to do something about this. Good timing. Right, so there's our part. So I'm going to attach one wire to it, just so you can see how it works. So what I got here, this is telephone cable, I believe. It's the sort of stuff that they run to your house if you're running a phone line, and it's a rigid, it's a very hard sheath on it. Anyway, the important thing is that inside it's got 4 pairs, not that it matters, of solid wire, and it's copper in this case, solid copper wire. And now I don't know what gauge that is. I would guess 26, maybe 28. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a tiny bit of the insulation off of this. And we don't need much. We do need a knife. So all I'm going to do is take about 4 millimeters. Just rotate the wire. So I'm just going to take that 4 millimeter, you can just about see it on the bench I think, 4 millimeter piece of insulation. I'm just cleaning up the end because the end isn't straight. The other end's alright. Now I'm hoping you can see this. That's a very tiny piece of insulation. So what I'm using for the rigging wire on the wings is this stuff. And this is bead stringing wire. And this is a 0.010 of an inch. And it is actually steel wire with a coating. And you won't be able to see this. I'm sure you won't be able to see it. But on the end there is a loop. And then the loop goes through a little bit of blue insulation. And this is exactly the same as the stuff we've got here. So that was one I did as a test to see if I could do it. So we'll cut that one off. And then we'll see if we can do it again with this orange bit. So I'm just going to take slightly longer length. Actually no, it doesn't need to be that long because I'm going to do the 2 that go to the back. So that's about like that. And these are the ones that go to the rear, go to the cockpit itself. Now this is the bit I was worried about. How am I going to thread these through here? And honestly, I was worried about it. I'm going to put a kink in it. I don't like kinking this because it is wire and it can be difficult to get the kink back out again. It's going to need a bigger kink than that. This is one of the easier ones. So clearly, what might be a better way of doing this? Well, actually, it might not. I don't know. Would be to attach these before you put the lid on the little unit. Trying to curve it as best I can. Okay, let's try something else. I have another idea. Make it straight again. Now it's that rear one that I'm trying to do. So if I go through right the way through to the other side, I go right the way through and then go back exactly the same way as I've just come, but try and go to the other side of that post, just like that. and I am now wrapped around another one. I didn't want to wrap around that one. So I didn't go back through exactly where I wanted to. Back through that one. Well, clearly I hadn't thought this through enough, had I? Oh, there'll be a way of doing this. I'm glad I'm doing it here now and not doing it on the model. So we'll go through that one, see if we can do it this way. I don't suppose I can get in there with my tweezers and actually just grab it. Nope. Well, there you go. Interesting problem to have. As I said, it might not work. And as it's proving, I think it is working. Well, I think you can see from this might not work. But you never know. I'll keep persevering and I'll get back to you. But you've seen what's going to happen. Once I thread it through there, I'm going to put the sleeve over it, pull it through, a bit of super glue, and that's how I'll do it. I'm going to go away, think some more. Okay, I think just for now I'm going to show you just doing one of these loops, just so you can see. So all I've done is I've gone through the outside one, which is an easy one to use, and then I'm just going to thread a bit of orange insulation in the wire, and it is only just big enough for 2 strands, and that is it. Then you feed, not sure if you're seeing any of this, feed the second strand or the second cable, and it is a snug fit, and it will go through, but eventually. And I actually misled you a little bit when I said these are going to go out to the ends of the wings. They don't actually. They go out as sort of extension wires, I suppose you'd say. They go out a couple of feet and then they transfer to the actual wires that go to the wings. So they're sort of an intermediate wire. So these only need to be quite short, and then I'll put a loop at the other end. So we run that to about there till you get it nice. Tiny little drop of CA on there. Wick off the excess again. I think that's probably stuck to my finger. There we go. And there you've got the beginnings of the rigging. Take off that excess. There we go. So that's what we're going to see. And then it goes about that far, and then there's another loop just here that takes the line from the wing. And I'm actually going to be quite cunning when it comes to the way this is rigged, because these 3 lines, the 3 lines that come from the wing, are actually going to have fishing hooks on the end. So they're the eye of the fishing hook and the shaft turned into a hook. And those hooks are going to hook through these lines here, which will mean I can take the wings off for shipping, transport. So there you go. I know it's been a bit trying to stare at the middle of the screen to try and see what the heck I'm doing, but that's the plan. That's the plan. All right, so if you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. That's assuming I can actually figure out how to thread all these other ones. So as a quick addendum to that video, I kept the same unit that I'd done before, and I struggled with it, but I did manage to thread the wires through the little loops and the pins and everything. So it was all okay. So this is the aileron, what would be the aileron lines, and each end of these goes to 3 lines that go to the trailing edge spar. Okay, and then on this side, the other side of this, oops, it's not focusing, there we go, the other side of that goes to the 3 trailing edge loops on the wing there. The 3 on the sides, oops, which I've just knocked all over the place, not that it really matters, those 3 on the side, each of those goes to the 3 anchor points on the leading edge, and then the 3 on the port side, they also go to the 3 anchor points on the other side. Fiddly as hell, and you saw how much fun I was having trying to thread those, and I've had to cheat very slightly. The ones on the left, on the port side, actually are correct, and each line goes to its own little dowel, but on the right hand side I just couldn't make it work, and I've ended up looping all 3 lines through the 1 pin. So you wouldn't know unless I told you, and I've just told you. So as I said before, the shape of this thing is not quite symmetrical, so it's not as neat as I would have liked, but rather than start again and do it all again, that's how it's going to be. You'll see that these lines are quite short. This is because the lines are separate that go to the wing. So I presume to make this post removable without having to remove, you know, great big long lines or whatever. I don't know. The 2 lines at the rear I have added, and these go down to the cockpit sides. They actually attach around about the spar points on the fuselage, which is a strong point. So so that's good. The 2 front ones I gave up. I just couldn't get them to thread, so I'm going to leave what I've already done. It was just anchored to the front of the mast, which is not quite right. It should be anchored to the plate. But any judges that are watching, you've got me. There you go, there's an error. So we'll carry on. But if you've enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe.